from an Nvidia perspective, what we're trying to identify is what are those algorithms and those problems that everybody are running, right? And how do we accelerate those and give them back to the industry, right? So we've recently come out with a few different tools. One of the real cool ones is called Merlin, and it's a recommender engine. And basically what it allows, today you go onto Facebook, right? Or you go onto Amazon, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, I was just talking to somebody about this, right? Or I just saw this, right? And they're using recommender engines to basically recommend things to you that you'd be interested in, right? So these companies are huge companies, and they develop these recommender engines, and they've got a lot of data, and you guys put in data every time you touch it and stuff like that. Well, most companies or most startups or individual companies don't want to invest in their own recommender engine and spend hundreds of millions of dollars. So as Nvidia, as a company, what we do is we'll go and build those things. And in this case, Merlin was one of them. And then we make it available to our customers. And that way they don't have to go build their own, right? They're going to use Merlin. They're going to build on top of it. They're going to train with their data in a model that's provided to them. And so each industry within Nvidia is going down the path of building out these platforms, industry-specific platforms to solve the problems of that industry. And so right now, a lot of my focus has been, what are those specific problems in my industry that Nvidia can invest in and partner with companies and consortia and universities to create these models or these platforms, and then provide it to the entire industry. And that way the entire industry benefits, and whether they want to use it on-prem or in the cloud, doesn't matter to us, right? We're driving the industry forward.
I think the democratization of technology is a really cool thing. I mean, you look at, like what AWS has done for startups, and you can literally, you don't have to have your own server set up. You can utilize what a big tech company has already made the investment in.
People don't realize like how big that actually is. Like, because you think like that's a huge barrier that startups had before, of like having to actually build your own servers or just the massive server costs that were associated with it, especially when you're, scaling a company. Like that was a huge line item as an expense. And now it's just like, it costs us practically nothing.
I mean, we have friends that have stood up startup SaaS products and built and sold within 2 years and bootstrapped, and they wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't for the democratization of tech like Nvidia is providing. And so I think that that's really cool that you guys take that same approach and provided this platform for others to use.
Right. And one of the things that I think I've learned about in the last, couple months that I think is going to start emerging is this thought around federated learning. And
explain that to me. I haven't heard it.
So I hadn't either, going back a few months, but I'm more a business guy than a highly technical guy.
Yeah.
But basically what federated learning allows companies to do, or companies, plural, is to share models without sharing data. So today in a highly competitive market or in a highly regulated market, it allows people to build models to solve a problem and actually share the model and the weighting of the model without actually moving data out of their environment. So imagine where you have, maybe oil and gas companies, and you got oil and gas service companies, and you have software companies, and all of a sudden they all have a piece of the data, right? But they're trying to solve a bigger problem, and they wouldn't necessarily want to share that data. They wouldn't want it to leave their environment. Well, now they can actually, we can start with a simple model, and we can basically have everybody working on that simple model, and they retrain it with their data. And then they actually push the model to an aggregator where it looks at the weighted averages of the model and then basically consolidates them into an even better model, and then pushes that model back down to the individual companies or departments where they can't share data between departments or others. And then all of a sudden it gets smarter and smarter and more accurate. And I think this is going to be a way for companies, both in oil and gas as well as utilities, to start to solve problems that they all face that don't necessarily offer a competitive advantage, but offer a sustainability, clean energy, safety, reliability, those types of things that they all struggle with. And basically they will start to be able to introduce AI models to solve those problems that are co-built across the industry without having to share their own data.
I mean, that's 100% happening to where you can really foster this environment of collaboration, right? Without exposing data. I mean, that's why, if you look back at 2018 timeframe, I mean, a lot of oil and gas companies, it was actually something I hadn't seen before, but they were very interested in blockchain technology. And, you had groups here in town that were starting to stand up that had E&Ps that were involved. And these companies wanted to work and collaborate to solve problems together. And, kind of the promise of blockchain was, hey, we can interface with each other without exposing proprietary data. So I know that the oil and gas industry is going towards that direction. And it's like, hey, let's put our heads together and figure out some of these extremely challenging problems that don't necessarily give anyone a competitive edge, and we don't expose any proprietary data, so everyone wins.
So in a lot of those cases, you're right. They're R&D projects, and our goal is how do we push those into mainstream? How do we push them from R&D projects or research projects into everyday use? And really, I think this is going to be a way in which companies are going to be able to do that, because they're going to have the security. And it doesn't matter. They don't all have to be working on the same platform. If this company over here is running on Azure, and this company's on AWS, and this company's on-prem with Dell, and here's somebody on HP, once again, they can all work independently and basically share the outcomes of their work in such a way that they all benefit.
Yeah.
So the industry is going to continue to transform along those lines.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Nvidia, the video game company, is gonna help energy transition. It's pretty cool.